Hi, today I'd like to go over activity 2.2 just to help you out. I know it's not easy to focus on research, especially if it's your first time. So notice the little icons here. We've got this one. This is what you're supposed to be keeping a journal on. That's what the icon stands for. And that one is a notebook that I've asked you to keep in the past. Our online whole class discussions will usually address this kind of thing, the group collaborative activity. So you can always go there and look and see what it is and try to include it into the whole class discussion. And then of course the RPA activity, the research paper activity, is what you're going to submit as a Word document after you've completed each one of these. But it'll be the same document. As I return it to you, you'll be adding the next RPA. Today I want to just go over this process right here of how do you select a research topic. We're talking in general terms at this point. A couple of you all seem to have really moved ahead, and I can't address that at this time, and that's why I've sent those emails back to you. But bear with me on this and just look at these broad categories. Now, these aren't the only ones. If you can think of others, create a list of them and do the ones you think would be doable. Remember, your research should be something that hasn't been done before. Like a lot of people choose parent involvement and then they have trouble designing their research around that. We already know that parents do get involved to the level that they can. If it's poverty involved, then parents can't make it to school. So if you're going to just find out why parents can't get involved, you're going to find out that the research already knows a lot about this. But if you have a specific thing about parental involvement in your school, perhaps trying out a strategy to communicate with parents and see if that helps or not, and see if maybe that impacts student grades over a 2-week period or something like that. Possibly you could do that. I'm going to begin with here on page 35. And I'm going to ask myself, what is something about teaching and learning that I really care about? For example, I really care about student achievement. I think that student achievement, and I don't just mean grades, I think that that is ultimately something that if it's not addressed, that it could be a reason why students drop out. Okay, this is important to me because I see that not all students get it. Some students wonder why they're learning this. And I've heard people say that there are no bad students, they're just bad teachers. Well, I kind of feel that way, but that doesn't mean you have to agree with me. But this research is for me to improve my class, my strategies, my way of teaching, which in turn might improve student learning and ultimately improve schooling without someone else directing me to do it. So that's the whole purpose behind the action research process. So it's important to me because I see that some students don't get it. Some students get low scores. Many eventually drop out. I see that sometimes I have minority male students doing more poorly than their white counterparts. Some people say it's cultural. It could be, but you know, it doesn't matter so much what the theories are out there. I want to actually change my my way of dealing with my students this semester or next semester. I want to be able to document something that says, look, I tried this and look at things improve significantly. I want to look at how can I move toward equity and social justice in my classroom. Where can I modify my teaching or try new strategies that might affect student achievement? So far, I could be saying something the things I'm saying could be about many of these other areas because we're staying in a very broad area so far. I see more boys engaged in my 5th grade science when I do science activities, and they get better grades, and their work seems to be more sophisticated than girls or even some minorities. And you know, this is causing me to reflect and on my perspectives. Of course, the readings that I do, the courses that I've taken, all that's going to come into play. But notice how it asks you here to to talk about in number 3. I know I'm kind of scattered here, but it says to expand your reflection to include the types of reflection and aligned with the goals of my study and the core values that I have as an educator. Um, I think that these 3 questions right here that they're asking are all interrelated to the reflection process presented in the Hendricks book. So I've already chosen one of these. Um, I would like to address number 2 now. The outcomes for me is to maintain the high standards for all students in my class, not lower the standard. Now I might have to modify for someone who is learning disabled, or I have a special ed student, or an ELL student whose English language command is not there yet, and so I might have to use pictures and manipulatives. And so this is causing me to think about how can I provide an equal opportunity for all of my students. So to maintain these high standards, high expectations for all of my students is something I'm going to document in my journal. I want to also maintain the positive gains that I've already seen, but I want to see them across the board. I wish for them to be extended to all students. I value that all children get an equal opportunity, and that the classroom is run in a socially just way. Perhaps this will impact minorities in my class, because even within the boys there are discrepancies between the different parent social classes. The poor children, the ones who maybe have both parents working, or have only one mother at home and she's always at work and maybe too tired, or doesn't have the academic background to help. I need to take this into my understanding so that I can provide support for those students. So the actions I'm willing to pursue will be to check if I talk differently to boys and girls during science. I want to know if I have gender bias in my teaching. I want to check the level of questions I ask, that they're equally distributed by gender. I don't want to talk to the boys thinking that this is sometimes very subliminal, very under the consciousness of the teacher. Sometimes we ask questions of students if we're doing some sort of a device to make sound. I could ask boys about the vibrations and the hertz, the number of vibrations per second, and get very sophisticated. When I talk to girls, maybe I'm talking to them about how they're dealing with themselves in a small circle. I recall saying something to a group of girls that they looked like a sewing circle. Just stay quiet, and maybe I asked them things about the nice colors they're using, and I stay away from the more sophisticated talk. I want to make sure I'm not doing that. I want to check the language I use across genders. I want to try teaching and learning strategies that I've read about in my teacher prep classes at NMSU. Maybe when I look in the literature review, I'll find some strategies in the research that address these issues, and maybe I can incorporate them and help address the negative aspects in my teaching ways. Eliminate the bad ones, maintain and develop the positive ones. So that's kind of what the outcomes are here. And some of the actions that I might take to pursue these outcomes. What could I do? Well, I was thinking that maybe I could have a colleague come in during their prep time when I'm teaching a science activity, and give them a seating chart and tell them to mark a mark of high, medium, or low, an H, an M, or an L, for every time I ask a student a question. And so by the student on the seating chart, just put H, L, or M, using sort of Bloom's taxonomy for higher level thinking, and just maybe over a 30 to 45 minute discussion or talk with my students, just see how many of these letters can be placed by certain students, and then sit down afterwards and analyze and see if there's any patterns there. I could also videotape my interactions with representatives of the boys and the girls, and maybe boys from maybe a more affluent background, and maybe some of the kids from the colonia, and do some further analysis by groups on the way I interact with them. Do I get down to their level? Do I talk from a standing position? Do I talk down to students? Do I talk similar to the ones that have my common background as opposed to those who don't share my background? Um, uh, I want to see if I can see a difference in student performance when I use research-based strategies. So perhaps I can find a strategy where it's a collaborative approach versus a more individual lecture-based approach, and see if I can really capture more participation using one strategy over another. So I wanted to just share this short 10-minute video with you all, and then prior to you all writing your research paper activity, reflect on what I've just presented. And if you think that an Adobe Connect face-to-face meeting in a week or so would be helpful to you all, I could do it in small groups or maybe on an individual basis. Thank you, and I wish you the best.